the original work of the autobiographical novel 10 Years of Marriage by Su Qing, a female writer in the Republic of China. Chapter 9 Suzhou Night Talk. There are more than a dozen people traveling to Suzhou this time. The oldest Mr. Murin fan Shishi, chief writer of China Newsums, Kia Yunsheng. Women's editor. There is also a female reporter Zhang Mingjian. She was originally a female from Jianbei, Zhuang capture it by Zhang Ailing's agents. Tortured, unwilling to surrender later, Zhang Lai himself became interested out of surprise. I don't know what method to use yet actually made the heroine surrender. At least on the surface at this time she comes with us dressed very simply to a blue cloth blouse, black flats, no perm, no makeup or powdery. Really admire you in my hearts. Kia is said to be from a left-wing background. Have lived with Sumiona later. They separated. Againi recently compiled this rich book for a bunch of spinster writers. The content is very ordinary naturally. It cannot attract the attention of society. Miss Nakia looks to be in her 30s. I like to talk like a social butterfly. Dressed up in colorful clothes. It's just a pity that the nose is made weird. The reason is that in his early years, the bridge of his nose was too flat. A small beauty salon transformed him. Beat in the waxamothi wax melted again, running around like rogues to the corners of their ice bend made a scar on his face. Night like sky. It's not pretty, but there is no way to restore him to his original state. Miss Kia heard that she cried so hard that she died and then came back to life. However, after all, there were no consequences for crying out. From then on, I became discouraged about Su Qing and others, because the man who was gay and living with him soon abandoned him. He met Zhang Mingjian. Like it very mixed, said that they came here on the same front. The gentle and beautiful Tang Zuan also got off the bus with Wu Pope Pope mouthing, pipe head held high and thoughtful. The thin and strangely long shadow always drags the big cane. His face is scorched, days filled with white ices if looking down on any fellow traveler. Suddenly Tang Zuan and Ren Wu. So I am the only one who can invite him to favor me and promise follow. The person who walked out of the station while talking to me was Kia Shangguanjun, is DJI's handsome old friend, but Qian Yingjun is here with Zhu Guang. No, the momentum is far from what it used to be. Qiu Shangwen worked as an editor under him, call him here and there and drink him. Didn't miss the old friendship either, just kill the chicken and show it to whose son. Let him be an honest man. Kia Shangwen was very depressed, but I don't want to resist thee is afraid of his wife on the inside and Qian Yingjun on the outside. Later we became acquainted privately. On time I joked with him and said, "Aren't you afraid of me?" He said no, seriously and fearfully. I'm afraid. I'm actually embarrassed to joke with him anymore. Mentioning Kia Shangwen's origins can be different from other literati. His father is a rich man. When the War of Resistance began, Simeon in the local area asked him for donations to save the country. He immediately fled to Shanghai. Think about it, in Shanghai, no other business can be relied on. It only counts if you buy land. Because it was bombed, it's still a piece of land. He spent most of all his cash in this way. As for other small parts, he felt that colorful banknotes were boring after all. Gold bars that are yellow, sharp and hard are always the best. Even the country people know I'm accessible everywhere. He doesn't do any other speculation. Just hold on to these 2 items trying to save money, call it lavish. Never a gainpity. His wiffino new clothes for the whole year. Wo meat and 2 vegetarian side dishes. There's never enough to eat every day. Occasionally I make soup or celebrate a festival or something like that. He always keep the whole bowl of side dishes for 3 to 5 days. Until it gets hot and smelly. That old man Kia usually goes out. His daughters-in-law advised him to call a rickshaw. He always says, "Okay, I'll go to the alley and shout." Result is that I am reluctant to shoot. He just can't bear you to be their filial piety and shout. I called 5 or 6 cars just because the counteroffer is too little. The driver refused to pull. He'd better take the train by myself. He doesn't feel any pain about squeezing into the tram. It might be like practicing martial arts, for example. What if you ask him to wait in line for the bus? Then there's no need to worry. Anyway, it's okay to be at home. It doesn't cost anything to stand in the middle of the street and watch the excitement. He likes to stand in the tram because sitting too much will easily tear your pants. People see him getting old. You want to give him my seat. Just kept saying, "You're welcome. You're welcome, my brother Lee. Please sit down. It's fine if I stand like this." Qiu Shangwen loves reading. His father would be more generous with this. However, the books you buy must only be in their current condition. The foreign devil's red leather and gilded stuff. He couldn't stand if his study room is quite neatly arranged because Mr. Kia said that Confucius cannot be blasphemed. Therefore, women and children are strictly prohibited from entering. Qia Shangwen's wife or mother wants to talk to Qia Shangwen. He had to stand at the door of the study and whisper to him. Once Chen Ma stepped in the door without knowing what was going on and called the young master to have dinner, was informed by Mrs. Kiwei was scolded to death. The old man was very uneasy and said that his surname should not be Qia, because this word is too powerful. It's really a sin to ruin this for both father and son. And he is even more afraid that people will be neurotic and think of their wealth because of the surname. He closed the door tight. Like back door is not open either. There is a small hole in the door. You must see clearly who you are before you let the guest in. Therefore, Qia Shangwen often return pocket money if doesn't have enough money to live at home. Although I am still well fed and clothed warmly but looking for a career. Then you can't get my permission, said the young man sneaked outside. Where can something good be done? His haircut, money and so on. Although it is stipulated that you can get it from Mebu. When you ask him for it, you have to listen to him grunt a few times. What do you mean? Your hair doesn't grow below your collar? What else are you going to do for him? You won't go to the wedding banquet tomorrow after returning from a haircut. He has to make his old man dissatisfied again. He said that since he went to get a haircut, we not cut it shorter. It can also be a few more days. Qia Shangwen felt pain in his heart. Sometimes his wife reluctantly gives him some dowry money. But where can a woman show it in such a big way? It's always heartbreaking. Gask for Textile district had no choice but to desperately try to make money. In the end, I figured out a way for him. Just submit. At that time, the most popular articles in the newspapers were articles about saving the country. He wrote passionately and generously and told him that the way to be patriotic today is for the rich to pay those who have no money contribute. If you have money, you are willing to contribute a bit. Why? After hearing this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "My old man is only 59 years old. When I can use the money to save the country, I'm afraid this country is already dead." He forgot his patriotic. The hour later, the National Army withdrew westward. Shanghai recruits patriotic element. She it at home. I don't even dare to show my anger. His father and woman also have some literacy. Can't help but feel afraid and regretful. Think about it. I might as well give him some extra pocket money. Therefore, the hand can't help but be a little more spacious. But over time I can't bear it anymore. Yuhan. Qia Shangwen once again sold manuscripts under a pseudonym. Shanghai has become an occupied area. His article had no choice but to be published in China Daily, DJI News, etc. Talk about plants, trees, fish and insects. No disaster at a ladder. Due to Qian Yingjin's persuasion, his old man also thought it was good to contact powerful people. So he joined DJI News and became an editor. Zhu Guanglai, because he doesn't understand the world, just ignore it indifferently, had a frank talk with him today. I think he has a more honest nature. No Philistine spirit. It's finally rare in today's era. Fan is actually an old man who loves to play with landscapes. The three of us are always together. Fan actually regrets that Pan Zimai has many things to do. Couldn't come together. He feel that this kind of entertainment is something that can't be appreciated by the bustling crowd. I'm afraid Pan Zimai is not limited to this kind of frivolity. Even when he comes, he will miss Euthus and Thathao to play comfortable. That day, we went to a certain bright garden to find Zhang Li. Jingyil came to entertain us with his girlfriend. His office and dormitory are in the same garden. This garden is too desolitaire, for there are many police officers standing guard when they see us coming in or out. They all salute us with their guns. It makes me a lot more consternated. At Hagwin in the evening, finish the meal, go to Lekin Hotel to listen to a storyteller by a famous female Tansy Ritter. The next day we visited various historical sites. Again it was Zhang Lai who sent someone to accompany us. The man pointed and slittling about King Wu Zishi and so on. They too, Miss Zuo King, listened very carefully. They sleep in the same bed with me at night. Speaking of which, men have to play poker all night long. Some people's throats are hoarse, some people can't even open their eyes but still refuses to give. Yupi was thinking, wouldn't playing poker be fun in Shanghai? I have to rush here to fight. He also heard that the people Zheng Lai sent to entertain were trying to please the guests. It's not enough to play with them during the day, also join in playing poker in the evening. Gloss a lot of Monet wonder if this loss is also included in the entertainment bill. Qia Yunsheng and Zhang Mingjian sleep together. He curled up behind my feet. Fell asleep. He closed my eyes and was too lazy to pay attention to them. I only heard Zhang Mingjian peeing in the bathroom first. The sing sound. Miss Qia also followed in. It's evening makeup. What kind of grease paper should I put on it? Zhang Mingjian said his skin is very good. He pinched his throat and started showing off. Begin to narrate your own glorious history. Later they both went to bed. Call Miss Su twice. Humphu Qia Yunsheng. Booty slept in the backy, was only worried about the two of them. He was afraid that they would hurt each other with their sharp words, but that didn't happen. Miss Kia was recounting her glorious past. A young man sent more than a dozen love letters, and a nasty carpenter wanted to tear off his pants when he saw him. Frightened him so much that he ran away. Another writer praised him. He said he was a golden hoop, a rare talent. Someone else said his eyes were too dangerous. A glance from his eyes would make a man lose his soul. After all, hurting people is a sin. So he put on a pair of myopic glasses, talked about his thin waist, and said he was afraid of men. What do you think of Zhang Li? Took it and smiled softly. I always feel a little scared. I'm afraid that men are bad. I can't get close to them anymore. Zhang Mingjian doesn't seem to want to listen anymore. He turns over and pretends to be asleep. He has no place to vent his interest. So he wakes him up and tickles him. He giggles. He can't pretend anymore. The two of them start talking again. They gradually move from love to sex, research, various actions. My body is very bad. Miss Kia keeps saying, I'm really afraid of men. They made me unable to sleep most of the night. I think of a passage in Sixi's biography. When Sixi revisited Rihi, he was already an old empress dowager with great authority. But in the Rihi palace, he stroked the clothes he used when he was a concubine. The concubine is a humble woman. At least in front of the emperor, he was satisfied. He was willing to dress up in the quiet palace, with powder and eyebrows painted, waiting for the king to arrive, kneeling before him, flattering him cautiously, flirting with him, and he smiled coquettishly. 3,000 palace maids stared at him with jealous eyes, so he felt honored, the real female honor. But when he became the queen mother, when all the servants knelt at his feet, he was very troubled. He looked down on them, and they were afraid of him. What joy could there be between men and women? The most proud history of women should be the one of being pursued. Even if it was a carpenter, he would pull down his pants when he saw him. He always had the ability to tease him. However, now, Miss Kia Yunsheng took the opportunity to hold the most noble Suzhou plum blossoms. The flowers returned to Shanghai. No one was in despair. Even the plum blossoms were left out. It was absurd. Miss Kia trembled as she carried him to the car. The people on the car refused to make way for the noble flowers and noble people. Fortunately, Zhang Mingjian had some strength. Only then did Miss Kia walk into the car one flower at a time. When we arrived in Shanghai, Kia Zhaoji was still affectionate and righteous. He still carefully carried the plum blossom juice home. He didn't abandon him on the road. I said goodbye to them. There was a 70-person team to take me home. There was a cold, dusty smell in the room. I opened all the windows and turned on the lights. The furniture and food were still the same. The shadows of the trees were still the same. The courtyard was still the same. I was back again. Nothing had changed. The same loneliness. The same lonely after Fan's wife picked at Yuppie couldn't help but float on the pillow and shed a few said terse a few days Laudermers. He invited me to her mansion to play, asked me if my friends in Suzhou are happy, said that there are so many people hanging out. It's meaningless. Looked up at me and said that a place with beautiful scenery, it's easy to increase people's feelings. He answered uninterestedly, yes. We do feel tired of work recently. He asked me again and nodded slightly, said there are some theories. 1% the manager of China News is named Fan, often plays with humors. Key's magic weapon is even more strange. Don't know what she means. He just said yes. Also went to Suzhou this timers. Key's eyes flashed. She smiled and said, Miss Su, I heard you were going to marry this gentleman. Is that true? It was beyond my expectation. I could not even dream of it. How could a timid scholar, old and poor, with a wife and children at home, marry me? Yes. I went to Kanglang Pavilion with him to visit the old site of the Yuan and pay homage to Zhang Taiyan's tomb. However, I never thought of falling in love with him or marrying him. This question was so abrupt. I couldn't help but wonder who told Mrs. Key. Mrs. Key turned her head and said, you don't need to ask. Anyway, someone told me. I became even more anxious. It happened that Mr. Key came in at this time. When he saw me, he said, I'm back from Suzhou. He was beaming with joy and seemed very proud. I was so embarrassed that I almost cried. Mrs. Key stopped her. My husband said, stop talking about her. I feel embarrassed when you say this about a serious matter. I can't defend myself. Mr. Key was lying on the sofa reading the newspaper. I sat next to him. Mrs. Key went into the room for something. I was silent for a long time. I couldn't help but ask with contempt, Are these words from Mr. Zhu Guanglai and others? I guess that Mr. Qian Yingjun was talking nonsense to you. Mr. Qi put down the newspaper and looked at you. I laughed for a while and said, you guessed wrong. I'll tell you honestly. That was what Jin Zhongli said. He got the news, but we don't believe it. It must be Miss Gu's doing. Miss Su, don't mind it. We were all joking. Mr. Qi is an extremely smart person. I believe he can understand me. It shouldn't be said that he can. I understand all women well enough. Women are pitiful and lamentable. But how can men be happy? Smart people are painful and empty. I had dinner at their house that day. Mr. Qi drank too much wine. He was depressed and bored. He copied a poem written by Wu Songui on his ancient sword and gave it to me. This is the sadness of the times. It is the regret of losing one's footing. It is the fear of the uncertain future. He wrote textured words on the sword. It reminds me of Yushin, Kai Wenji, and many people in ancient and modern times who had no choice or regretted too late. I sighed and sympathized with them, but I also felt sad. Their experiences were so unfortunate. It would make people feel depressed if they were written into poems and songs. I couldn't bear to watch them. I understand them. I also pity my own fleeting years and lonely life. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.